so excited that you all are joining in. Welcome to the Tuesdays Together webinar. And we are just so, just so pumped. So as you all trickle in, I am just grabbing my notes here, and then we are going to jump in. It's so exciting. So I cannot wait to jump into this conversation with Lisette. We are kicking it off with our Inclusivity in Business monthly guide. And so we're going to dive into all those just amazing topics and everything. And so here we go. Okay, well, hi, Tiders. For those of you who don't know, my name is Lauren Taylor. I am the Community and Content Manager here at Rising Tide. And before we get started, we wanted to share a note on inclusivity. We recognize that inclusion is an important but infinite topic that cannot be adequately covered in a single webinar. To make inclusion feel more manageable, this resource aims to amplify the voices in our community and provide some suggestions for how to make inclusion a continuous, ever-evolving process. So to start off, I want to welcome you to Global Virtual Tuesdays Together. And again, I'm Lauren Taylor, Community Content Manager. I'm a community advocate, creating our monthly guide, uploading the voices of our community to support independent businesses and implementing positive change and tangible actions to improve their business. So it's all super fun, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of this community. So for those of you who are new, Rising Tide is a community of independent business owners, freelancers, service providers, and creative entrepreneurs who come together regularly to support one another in the spirit of community over competition. And Rising Tide believes an empowered creative economy will change the world by elevating the voices of independent business owners, sharing their stories, and building a thriving community. We hope to support you in your pursuit of sustainable livelihood, doing what you love. So I absolutely love that. And we are going to dive into our speaker today. So we have Lisette Cervano. And actually, Lisette, please, I want to make sure I get this right. Can you say your last name for me?
Cervano.
Okay, perfect. She is a queer Latinx Filipina born and raised in the Bay Area. She is a senior experience and inclusion manager at HoneyBook. Prior to stepping into this role, she was an wow, my words today, you guys. She was an executive assistant for 20 plus years, where she cultivated her passion for working closely with executives to build companies that care about culture, diversity, inclusion, belonging, equity for all. Basically, she's just a superwoman. One of her superpowers is ensuring that people within the communities she serves have safe spaces to be their true, authentic selves. In her free time, she loves to adventure with her pup, Palo Santo, and her partner of 17 years. So thank you so much for joining us, Lisette, today. And you look beautiful than ever. So I'm so excited to chat. We are doing a Q&A today. And so you all please jump in with your questions as well. And I'm just so excited. How are you feeling today, Lisette?
I am very excited. I'm very honored to be here with you today, Lauren, and the rest of the Rising Tide community. I am very familiar with the Rising Tide community. I've actually had the opportunity to help support Tuesdays Together when they used to be in San Francisco, when we used to have them in San Francisco. They used to be at our office. So I had many times where I got to hang out and just check out what you guys do during the Tuesdays Together. Always walked away feeling super inspired by the members of this group, and just feel really lucky to be here to be able to share some of the things that I work on and I'm passionate about.
Love that. And you're doing such phenomenal work. I think, just from my short time with you, I can already tell your heart is just so big and so full, and the positive impact that you're making in the world is absolutely magical and incredible. So I'm super excited to dive into today's topic. We're talking all about inclusivity in business. And I wanted to start out with, what words would you describe inclusivity?
So when I think of inclusivity, the words that come to mind are really like people feeling valued, accepted, safe spaces. Also, for me, what comes up there is not just, the go-tos, which are gender and race. I think that that's kind of where we all feel really comfortable. But I think we need to go deeper into that space, right? And we need to be talking about class and sexuality and disability. I feel like disability is actually a big one that we're all a little bit scared or not knowing how to approach, but it is part of the conversation, right? It is part of being inclusive and creating inclusive space. That's really kind of what comes up for me when I think of inclusivity.
I love that. And I think it's such a powerful meaning. And it really peels back the layers of that word, right? Because there are so many layers to it and there's so much deep meaning there. I want to take a quick time to shout out some people that are here. Hi, Natalie. Hi, Lindy. Hi, Amy from Seattle. Catherine from Rhode Island. Carrie from Alberta. Amazing. And Winnie, Maryland. Brittany, Rhode Island. Okay, we have a lot of Rhode Islanders here, which is amazing. Co-leader, that's incredible. And Molly from Portland, Tabitha from Georgia. I love that. You just have fans all around, which is incredible. So jumping into the next question, Lisette, what is the importance as a business owner when it comes to inclusivity?
So I think there are a few ways to look at this as a business owner. I think one of the most important things before even thinking about like what's important is really thinking about how you define it, right? What does diversity and inclusion mean to you and your business? Because I think that's the foundation. Setting that foundation is going to keep you pointed towards your North Star, right? Because the other thing that's important to know, I think, as you step into this new kind of space and creating this and taking this on, is that this is like you mentioned earlier, this isn't a race to the finish line. This is work that you have to commit to doing for the rest of your life, right? And it's not just work that you do at work. It's a lifestyle change. It's actually something that you need to decide, is this part of who you are and your core values, right? Those are, I think, the beginning steps of this journey and deciding if this is really something that you are committed to do, because it is one of those things that once you start, you can't really go back. And you can, trust me, you can, but it could blow up and it could backfire on your business, right? Because this is also your brand. This is who you are. So here's a couple of ways of kind of looking at it. As a business owner, I would say, one, how this impacts your current employees, and two, how this impacts your clients, right? So you have to think of this not only from a client experience, but also an internal employee experience. So even including your own, right? So say you're a small business owner and you've got a couple people on the team that are helping you. It's really important to understand, if you're bringing this to the business for clients and you want to be inclusive business, you also have to be an inclusive employer. So you also have to think about the people that you're working with and creating safe spaces for them in order for them to then be able to then create safe spaces for your clients. I think some of the things we need to remember and keep in mind, that when you're creating an inclusive business, an inclusive work environment, you're creating a sense of belonging for your employees, right? And when you create a sense of belonging, that enhances how your employees engage with you and with the business and with the clients, how they show up. You're creating a better experience for them, which then usually causes them to want to be better at their job, right? It also, when you create an inclusive environment and a diverse environment, you're also creating a space where clients are going to be dealing with folks in your business that understand and are exposed to differences and diversity, right? So that then also attracts a wider group of people to work with, right? And obviously, when you diversify your customer base, you diversify the channels of revenue for your business. So it's always a good thing. But I will say this: if you're driven by making money, and that is why you want to diversify your clientele and or diversify your employee base, I think you need to take a moment because it can't just be about money. If you're driven by just money, then it's very surface, right? You're not there to do the work. You're not committed to doing the work. You're not actually committed to in creating an environment where both employees and clients feel like there's a space for them to work with you, right? Money is very important. It's the driving force, but it shouldn't be what drives the reason why you want to diversify and you want to be inclusive.
That's so powerful. And I think it also origins back to purpose, right? Like purpose has to surpass revenue. It has to surpass the appearance of your brand. It has to surpass likes on Instagram. Like that purpose needs to be so, I think, just again embedded into the fabric of who you are. Because I think also too, as independent business owners, we don't realize how much of the fabric of who we are is integrated into our business.
I mean, take a look at like even a small business owner's Instagram, right? It becomes you become your business. There isn't really this, you get to leave the office at 5 o'clock and put the computer away. It's every single part of you. It's your livelihood, right? Like literally breathes life into you. And so if you're doing something that doesn't align with you, regardless of why you're doing it, it's never going to work, right? It'll work for a little bit. It'll maybe get you to the next step or the next level, but it will not be a consistent growth path for you and your business. Both, I think, from like a growth of like client growth, but also growth of like just business acumen and understanding the world and how we move through it.
I love that perspective. Amy, well said. Thank you, Amy. I love that. And all the encouragement as well. Please, you all feel free to fill up the chat with questions or even words of encouragement like from Amy. What concrete efforts can we take now to promote inclusivity? We'd love to hear just those actionable steps you think that we can start to take within our businesses.
Okay, so the first step is kind of scary and kind of hard, but I think it's one of the most eye-opening steps. So this is what I always tell people. I think the first step is understanding your own biases, right? We have them all, and having them doesn't make you a bad person. But when you have them and you understand them and you choose to acknowledge them and you choose to actually work through them and do the work to change those biases, I think that's when you see magic, right? That's when you have these aha moments. That's when life opens up all these doors that you didn't even know existed and brings new people and new community into your life, right? So for me, I strongly believe that when you open yourself up to the world will open itself to you. But you have to be, again, committed to do the hard work, right? Which means sometimes taking a mirror and looking at yourself. And there's a great, and I can share this with you later so you can share it out, but Harvard has a great implicit bias test. It's very thorough. There's multiple tests you can take, and you literally take these tests, get your results back, and you have a tool. Now you have knowledge of where you have a gap and where maybe the areas that you feel biases in, you can go and do the work there, right? You can find the right workshop, you can find the right resources, the right tools, the right person that resonates with you that can help you through that by learning. So I think that that's the first step. First step is understanding where you are in this journey. Understanding that this is where you are. That doesn't mean that's where you need to stay. And if you really are committed and you really want to do this, then you will make sure that you aren't there for very long. I think some like low hanging fruit when talking about promoting inclusivity is looking at your services. Are they accessible to everyone? If you have a space where clients meet with you, can anyone come to this space and meet you there, right?
Mm.
Can someone in a wheelchair? Can someone who is blind? Can someone who has another type of disability? Can they find you? Are they able to come to this space? Are they able to experience what other people experience? And if they aren't, what kind of virtual experience are you giving them? Are you giving them that ability to connect with you virtually? Because so many of us now need to connect virtually and cannot come to be in a space with others. Have you created that experience for them, right? Your website, for example, is it accessible to everybody with disabilities? There are a lot of resources out there now on how to make your websites accessible. There are a lot of tools and there are a lot of ways of doing that. And by doing that, we give accessibility to other people who deserve it and who may be struggling to find it with other vendors. You can be ahead of the game by just thinking about all the people in this world who could potentially use your product and getting or your services and getting it to them, right? I think that's a huge low-hanging fruit that you can start to work on right away. Your values, right? So is inclusivity reflected in your values? Is when you've written out your values or the behaviors, right, that you want to see within your organization or that you want to create with your clients, is inclusivity booked into that? Can everybody access your values? Can everybody live to your values? And if not, are there better values and better ways of bringing folks in? If you have a team, I think it's really important for them to be part of the conversation and to actually be part of the process, right? Because your team is working with you. They are a reflection of you. They're an extension of you because you've grown your business to a place where now you need help. And they should be with you through this journey. They should be just as committed to the journey, and they should be part of doing the work and figuring this out for your business. They're part of your team. Bring them in. It's really important, I think, too, as a business grows, to bring the team in, to show them that they're part of what they've helped create. Some other things are the words we use. What is the language of your company? Are you using inclusive words? Are your words gender neutral? Are you practicing that? It's okay if you're not, but maybe it's time to start practicing that, right? Maybe it's time to use gender neutral words and language and on your websites, on your contracts, on your invoices, in job descriptions, in any internal communications. I think sometimes when we're thinking about business, we're constantly thinking about what we give to the world, where you have to be doing the work internally too. So if you've got copy that you're constantly on top of to make sure it's inclusive because it's going to go out to the world, what about what your employees are seeing when you communicate with them internally? Are they getting that same experience? Remember, this is not just an external thing. This is very much an internal thing. You have to put your money where your mouth is. And then some other things, normalizing using preferred pronouns, normalizing that when you're talking to folks, making it part of your contact information form, making it part of that first touch experience, putting it on your website when in your about me page, right? Like where you describe yourself, you add your gender, add your pronouns, and people will see that as a signal, as a safe space. Like as a queer woman, when I go to certain places that I know are not as queer friendly, I'm constantly looking for signals that make me feel safe. So if a restaurant in a small town has a flag, right, has like the LGBTQIA flag, or has a BLM sticker, or anything that shows me that they are a safe space for marginalized folks, I'm going there. I'm going there before I go to the place that I know got all the reviews on Yelp. I'm going to go to the place that I know is safe. That's happening when people are looking for vendors, right? That's happening when people are looking for small businesses to work with. They're looking for signals. So signal that you're a safe space. Signal it only if you truly are a safe space, because the performative stuff just does not work. And it's going to backfire on you. So again, if you're doing this for performative reasons, then just don't do it. Just don't waste your time, and just choose to be the business that you are, because the performative stuff will catch up on to you. Like, someone's going to catch that, and then it's going to be even worse for your business, and you may not be able to come back from that. Yeah, so those are a few little.
Oh, you had so many golden nuggets in there. I want to touch quickly on creating that safe space, because when you brought that up, it hit my heart a bit, because I remember in growing up, my parents, they would never take us into a restaurant where they didn't see another Black person, or I would never go to a hairstylist if I didn't know if they could do Black hair. But it's something I've never even thought about. It's something that is just like you almost subconsciously look for, like you said, in looking for that safe space. And I think that is so unbelievably important, because even in 2022, I feel like there still are not enough the whole world should be a safe space ultimately, but there's still not enough safe spaces in those, businesses. And I think that sometimes, depending on your backgrounds, environment, how you grew up and everything, those are not things that you can always think about unless you're affected by. And so my next question is, what would you say if you were speaking to a friend, what would you say to them in how to almost overcome this? Because I think sometimes there can be an intimidation of like looking in the mirror in that reflection and being like, okay, like where are those biases? Where are those things that I can work on within myself, within my business? How do you build that confidence to take that step forward? Or what advice would you give in that?
In kind of believing in yourself, like finding that within yourself to harness. I think that's a very good question. I think that one, it's a hard one to answer generally, because everybody's so different, right? But I think for me, for example, because there are moments where I have to create safe spaces and they're difficult for me to create, right? Meaning that sometimes creating a safe space is creating space for someone that doesn't necessarily always feel safe for you. Okay. And I think in that, it's like I'm constantly reminding myself, but this is part of the work, right? So this is part of the work. The hard stuff is part of the work. How bad do I want to make an impact? How bad do I want to change the world? Even if it's just one or two people, how important is creating this safe space to me for others? And it's very important, because I think that when you do this, it changes people. Even when you're creating safe spaces for people that are problematic for you, maybe, right? For example, let's say I'm creating a space for someone who doesn't accept my queerness, because that has had to happen, right? You're working in an environment, you may not know people's backgrounds, and then something comes up and you realize, oh, we don't align here, but I still have to create a safe space for them. I still have to make this an inclusive environment. And you know what? For me, I'm a bit more fueled with people like that, because I feel like this is an opportunity for two humans to come together and realize that what you believe in and what I believe in, got it. But we can leave it at the door for this space. And we can create a space that's safe for both of us to be able to work in, play in, live in, breathe in, enjoy life in, without bringing all that other stuff into this space, right? So sometimes you literally have to tell yourself you're going to leave things at the door, and you're going to, because the greater impact that what you're doing it's going to have is more important than maybe that moment where it's difficult for you because of your biases, right? And if anything, this is a learning experience for you. You're challenging yourself. I'm challenging myself. And when I walk out of that, experience, I feel really good, because even if I didn't change this person's perspective of queerness or me, they know that I created a safe space for them, and they know that feeling, and they know how important that is. And so this is hard work. There's one of the things that we discussed when we were chatting was, how do you do this work when you have moments of flare up, right? Where this work can be triggering for yourself. And one of the things that's super important is to know your triggers. Know your triggers, know your biases, and know your triggers. And then know that space that you can operate between them. That's where you create the safeness, right? And then and that doesn't mean that you don't honor your biases and triggers. You honor those, but in your quiet time, in the safe space you've created for yourself. So know also what you need to self-care. So I have a list that I carry. It's in my phone, and it is a list of what I need for self-care. And it ranges from costing zero to the most expensive thing that I could think of that would make me feel better on a hard day. And literally that list saves me in moments of difficulty, right? Because it's like, okay, I have to do this. I have to push through this for my business. I have to create this because this is the commitment that I've made, because in the end, I want to diversify. I want to feel like my business is inclusive. I want to have a client base that looks like when I step outside into the world, right? Like I want that. But it's going to take some work to get there. So what are the things that I need to get through those phases of this journey? And create them for yourself, right? Because part of creating safe spaces for others is creating a space for yourself, being able to retrieve back into that space, close yourself up, heal yourself, and then come back out to do the work that you need to do.
Yes. Aha moments. There's so many. Gosh, that's so good. I want to take a quick break and shout out some of these comments. One from Brittany Taylor. I was in my local cafe and they had new people working, so I asked for everyone's names and pronouns. They were so excited when I asked that. It means a lot to people. That is absolutely beautiful, Brittany. I love that. Molly, yes, the IAT is so compelling. I have done that assessment multiple times over the past 10 years, and it's really a good indicator of growth for me personally. Oh, I love that too.
Can I just comment on that? I think that that's incredible that you're constantly doing, because that's something that I always tell folks too. It's like, do it all the time. Do it all the time, because like you mentioned, it's you can see your own growth, and you can also see how things change for you. There might be a new bias that you didn't have before, and it might be because, and then you dig into why. Maybe it's the environment changed. Maybe it's because you're exposing yourself to something on social media. What is it? But it's the knowing within yourself, and I applaud you for doing it for the last 10 years. I think that's amazing.
Wow, that's incredible. We have a question from Rebecca Foley. How do you include the problematic folks without diluting the culture you're creating? I am often worried about adding problematic folks to my client base for this reason.
I think part of this is deciding what your boundaries are, right? I think that as a business owner, it is okay to say no to people. And it isn't that you're not being inclusive, it's that you've decided to create a safe space. And unfortunately, this type of client may not allow that to continue to happen, right? So we do need to set boundaries for ourselves regardless. The way that I see it is like my boundary is usually, the marker is, if you are openly trying to make others feel unsafe, then I cannot interact with you and I cannot allow you into this space. Now we can create a space for you so that you have a platform to speak what you're going through, to be able to articulate, to be able to get the things out, but it is not going to include these people. And so when it comes to your business, I strongly believe that you can say, this isn't the kind of person this isn't the kind of client that I want. Build your client profile. And that could be a very diverse client profile, but it could also be a client profile that says no to certain things, right? No to certain behaviors, no to certain types of clients that are not only going to make your other clients uncomfortable or push them away from wanting to do business with you, but also your employees, right? for me, number one is protecting my employees. There is no business, there's no amount of money that is more important than the health and the safety of my employees.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you decide where your boundaries are and where you want to draw the line, and know that if you are coming from a place of wanting to keep people safe, I don't think then that you're not being inclusive.
Mhm. That's so powerful. And I think that also translates back to us personally and building that stronger muscle and creating those healthy boundaries. And yeah, it just and that seed can just grow into so many different aspects of our lives overall, making us just in a healthier space for ourselves too.
Yep.
Molly, Rebecca, I have some contract language from the contract shop that allows me to reject any client that asks me to letter any language that is racist or exclusionary. I'm a calligrapher. Oh, great. So that's perfect. So that's amazing. And I'm very familiar with the contract shop as well too, and I love that they do that because I think that can also be difficult at times in finding the correct verbiage, right, when setting up those healthy boundaries.
Yeah, that's incredible that the contract shop provides that
Mhm.
resource tool, and I mean that's great. The contract shop. I'll have to look them up.
Yeah, you should. They're phenomenal. Okay, and diving into our next question. This has been such a phenomenal conversation thus far, and Lisa, I could literally talk to you all day long about this. So thank you so much again for joining us in this. And so I know that we've touched on this a bit, but I wanted to kind of bring it back into how do you build for everyone in terms of inclusion in your brand and business? So I know that we have touched on bits and pieces, but are there just a couple of things where it's super actionable and making sure that we build for everyone?
Yeah, I would say definitely your website language, right? Your
Mhm.
social media, your copy, all of your copy.
Mhm.
Is it inclusive? Are there words that you're using that I might have to Google, right? Like, we don't think about those things, but like is it easy for me to understand what you do? Is it easy for me to relate to you? Are you, again, do you have signals on your website that show that that you're more progressive business owner, that you're more open to different types of people? Your marketing materials. And while again, I want to say, I think that there's this like kind of like sticky space where
Mm,
you want your website to look diverse, but let's say
mhm,
you haven't done a photo shoot with a diverse set
mhm,
of people. Um, I will say there's a kind of this gray area between like posting up pics that look good, but then not actually making sure that you're servicing those communities. So while I will say like your marketing materials and your website, I think there you have to be very careful and be very authentic.
mhm.
It shouldn't feel like you're trying to post things that you actually haven't done, right?
Yes.
So I want to just kind of say that. I think also some other ways of building for everybody. So your website, your copy, your network. It's the same thing as your friendships. Like we can talk about diversity all that we want. We can talk about what we want and what we think is right and how we think we should all be living. But if we're actually not living it, then it's not real, right? So you can talk about wanting a diverse group of friends, but if you're not going out there and actively putting yourself in diverse environments and not just to make friends, but because you actually want to learn about different cultures, then it's the same for business, right? So network with people outside of your normal, your regular community of folks that you network. Put yourself in challenging spaces. I think, how do you build for others? Learn from others. Learn from business
Mm,
owners. Don't steal from business owners. Learn from them. Listen to what they're saying. Don't watch a video. Oh my God, that was super cute. Oh, I'm going to try that. Listen, understand why that person chose that route. Understand what like what creating those types of videos or those types of TikToks or that type of you know, social media presence means. Don't just steal ideas, but actually learn from people. Cite where you were learning things, cite where you got the idea, level people up, right? Lift people up, give them access. And that way, that's how you're building genuine connections with folks. But go outside of your comfort zone, outside of your world. I think those are some areas of where to kind of start to build for everyone.
I love that, because credit is everything.
Credit is so important. Also, if you're at a place in your business where you're able to do market research, and even if you're partnering with a company that does it for you, how diverse is that company? How diverse are all the partners that you do business with? That is that's very important, right? Because again, if you're diversifying your business partners, then you're opening yourself up to other communities. And when you're doing market research, make sure that the folks that you're researching are all from diverse communities, that they all have different ways of living life. It shouldn't be the same group of people, or you're just going to continue to get the same kind of clients and the same kind of responses that are comfortable.
Yes, that's brilliant. And I'm going to join these questions together. How do we go about diversifying that network and then also discussing diversity within our communities?
Sure. So I think with diversifying your network. So again, like I mentioned, joining new business communities, right? Joining communities that that you've heard about, you know, that you want to join, but you're kind of scared. If you're feeling scared, join them. Like if you're feeling scared, do it. Like that is like that scary kind of fear. That means you're like about to make a breakthrough. That means that you're going to do something that you haven't done before, and that can only expose you to a new world, right? So I think seeking out business owners that are unique, that they're not like all the other businesses that you follow, someone who has a different style than you, you're going to learn something, right? You're going to be exposed to something. You're going to be inspired. I think that when we try new things, when we put ourselves in new environments, really all it is doing is opening us up, right? It's opening up things about us that we didn't even know we were connected to. I think surrounding yourself with people who challenge your views. I think having a mentor is really, really important. I think even a coach, make it someone that is very different than you. Make it someone who will push you out of your comfort zone, who will challenge your, the space that you're in. And this thing that I like to tell people is to build bridges. So don't just stick to your own industry. Look to find people doing things that are in industries that complement yours, right? Especially as small business owners, freelancers, creatives. I think that there's a lot of bridge building that can be done. And when you do this and you go outside of your industry and you start to follow people who are small business owners, they're doing something different, but doing something different usually leads to you doing something different, right? Like following someone, learning from them. And I think those are some ways of diversifying your network, and also create habits, not obligations. So a lot of times networking is an obligation. We feel like, oh, I've got to do this. It's not, it's a habit. Make it into a habit, make it into something fun, make it into a reward for yourself, right? So at the end of like a hard month of working, I know that I'm going to reward myself with this really cool networking event that's outside of my regular industry. It's in a new environment with new people, but I'm going to go in there and I'm going to own who I am, and I'm going to feel empowered, and I'm going to make connections. And even if they're not connections that you can use right away, they're connections. The connections are so important. I feel like a lot of the places where I've gone in this world, a lot of the opportunities I've had were from connections that I built, and they weren't connections that I had to take care of and manage. They were just there, and we checked in every now and then opportunities came from it. So I think making networking a habit and not an obligation will help to change the perspective when we're having to do it.
Wow. I think that is so important to remember to soak in, and it's really inspiring to see you discussing this, because you can see how much you light up, and just it's something that is, I think, so important to witness, because this should feel empowering. Like, it shouldn't feel daunting, as you said. It should feel empowering and inspiring and motivating, and all in all, it's going to make us better than we were yesterday. And just the fact that we're all here today, for those who are here right now, for those who will watch this back, I honestly believe that us just being here just shows the capability of what we have and what we can do in the world. So that's incredible.
And one thing to remember is that most people, they want to be seen. Most people want someone to see them. And sometimes that's all you really need to do for people. And when you're doing something like networking, or when you're going out of your comfort zone, remember, just ask people questions. Ask people questions about what they do. Ask people things that you would want someone to ask you, right? And make those connections genuine, right? Make them so that they feel good for you, because again, it's an exchange of energy, and I'm all about being very careful with how you exchange your energy and always protecting it. So just make sure that those conversations, that you're doing these things and they feel good to you, and you're connecting with people in a genuine way, and they feel seen, you feel seen, and this is really how you actually start to create these safe spaces, right? Paying attention to who people are. A lot of times what I do is I just listen and I watch people, especially in my office. Like, I listen and I watch them and I learn them and I understand who they are. And then within 3 months, I'm creating a space for them they didn't even know they needed, and it feels really good for me. But part of that is like paying attention to people and taking time to understand who people are and really see them. Even if there are things about them that you don't agree with, even if it's new to you, even if you don't understand, sometimes just putting all that stuff aside and just understanding seeing the person and listening to them, you really learn a lot.
Yes. I think I almost want to say, extraordinary thing that I think that you can hear from a person is, you made me feel seen and heard. And it's, those two words are just, they're just everything. So I fully agree with that. And that is so, so good. How do we raise our awareness and education and utilizing, our own superpowers? Because I think that everyone in the world has a superpower that they can utilize towards this. So how do we do that?
I think understanding your superpower obviously is super important, right? I think understanding your superpower, how it relates to people, and knowing how, taking moments to look back and to think about the feedback that you get from people, right? So think about the things that people say to you. What have people said that you do for them? And then taking that and applying it into your business, right? And applying it into educating those around you. So for example, like my superpower is that I create safe spaces. Now that was just something that happened out of literally not having those spaces growing up. Okay. So for me, it was just something that I didn't even know I was doing until someone told me I was doing it. And a lot of times that's how we figure out our superpowers, right? We realize someone tells us, oh my God, this is your superpower. And you're like, wow, I didn't realize that. And so for me, for example, it was creating safe spaces. Well, how can I do that? How can I do that in the space that I'm already in? How can I do that within the environment I'm in? I, a little bit differently than most business owners, I kind of just started to work and figured out my superpower within the work that I was doing. Now, as business owners, a lot of times you're already working in a space that's like where your passion is, where you're like I said, like your livelihood, like where you're breathing what you do. And so there's some of your superpowers already wrapped up into your business, right? That's why you have your business. But then really understanding, where do you want this to live in this world, right? Where do you want inclusivity to live in your business? And then taking those superpowers that help you build that business and building that within your organization.
I love that. I wanted to ask you as well, and because after reading your bio and just everything that you have built, implemented, and just shared your magic on thus far, how does it feel for you in creating those safe spaces and just being aligned with who you are and what you do? What is that feeling like?
It's usually incredible, right? It's usually super fulfilling, but I'm not going to pretend that it's always the good stuff. I mean, there are I've had some hard moments in this journey of, again, what does it mean to be inclusive, Lisette? Like, I have to ask myself that in those hard days, right? Where I'm upset, where, there's a lot, obviously there's a lot happening in our world right now. And there's a lot of things that are being, a lot of laws that are being changed, and a lot of protections that we have that have changed. And I understand that everybody has their own opinion and the way that they see it. And understanding that also within a business, right? So understanding that while there may be a majority, there's always a minority. And even if you may not align, they still deserve to be in a space that they feel that they can be included in when it comes to work, right? And when we're talking about work, we're not talking about these other political things, although they do impact how we move and how we work with each other and who we are in our bodies. But I think that you have to be very mindful. You have to be, you have to stay and remind yourself why you're doing the work. You have to remind yourself that the work is bigger than your own biases. You have to remind yourself that people and what they need is bigger than your own opinions and biases, right? And you have to understand why you have them. Like, I know why I have certain biases. I know what they are. And so that means that I just have to be that more in tune with that, especially when I'm in an environment where those biases may come into play. I have to just know, okay, this is not what you're here for. You're here, as Lisette, the Senior Experience and Inclusivity Manager at HoneyBook. You're here to make sure that every employee feels that there's a space for them where they can be, right? Where they can just be. And I think that's where you have to really, that's where the commitment comes in from the beginning. That's where you really have to make sure that in the beginning of this journey, you're fully committed to understanding that there's also going to be moments where you're going to hit a rock, and you're going to be put between a rock and a hard place. And you have to decide, what is the goal here, right? What is the mission? Is the mission here to deal with my own biases, or is the mission here to create an inclusive and diverse space for employees at HoneyBook?
Yes.
Does that
yes. That's absolutely incredible. And I think it also goes along with, I always try to remember to I don't know who said this to me, but someone said to always move with love in everything that you do, everything that you think, move with love. And so I think that speaks volumes into what you do. And I was curious just because I feel like one of my superpowers, I just see people and their purpose and what they can do and just how they shine so brightly, and it's just so inspiring to see. And I often feel like there's so many people, and especially with everything that's going on in the world, we don't necessarily see that within ourselves all the time. And then that can feel overwhelming, especially with everything else that we have to do as independent business owners and just human beings. And so I think that I'm so happy that you shared, because although it might not be always incredible and everything, but it's so important. It's such a major impact. And I think every human being, their worth here, their existence here is just so important. So,
and to add to that, I mean, even in the moments that were the hardest, where like literally I might have cried a little bit.
yes.
Even in those moments, the learning after, the impact of like of knowing that I challenged myself and I did something and I was able to push past a challenge of mine, like it was worth it, right? It was worth it.
Yes.
And even on the hard days, I feel like I still wouldn't give those hard days back. Like I still want them, because those hard days also made me better, right? They made me into a more compassionate human being.
Wow.
Yeah.
And see, even in that's so much growth in the perspective of that, because often I think people would look back at hard moments like, oh, I don't want to go through that again. No way, no how. There's nothing I can see positive out of that. There's nothing that I would even want to think about that again. So that's true growth. And that's so, again, just so powerful to look at something like that, because I do think that that's when we really grow. That's when we really like that grit that comes out, and what we experience, what we go through. And those are things that make up the fabric of who we are. So,
and imposter syndrome is a very real thing.
Yes.
Like a very real thing. And
yes.
The great thing is, I think for me, I don't ever see it going away, like just because of the way I'm built. I just don't ever see it going away. But what I do appreciate about my journey with imposter syndrome and where I am with this thing is, I know that it exists, and I know when it's happening, right? I know now. I know that it's not it's not that I'm failing or that I don't belong here or that I didn't earn the space that I'm in, right? It's more about, okay, I'm feeling imposter syndrome right now. And I have a couple friends on speed dial that I text or call when I'm having imposter syndrome. And they help me. They bring me back to reality. They remind me of, excuse my language, but my badassness, right? Like they remind me that I deserve to be here, and that's why I'm here. Even having this call today, I was like stressed out. I was really nervous. I was like, I don't think I'm the right person for this. But then I got a few texts, and it was my people, and they made me feel good, and they reminded me that I've got this. And so I think that if we accept our imposter syndrome, if we know it, we become friends with it. It's like all the other little voices in our head, right? It's all the little voices that told you weren't going to be able to create the business, but look at you right now. You have that business. And so let's remember that. Become friends with your imposter syndrome and have a few friends that will remind you it's just imposter syndrome.
Yes. And because I agree with you. I don't think that's going anywhere. I don't think that fear is going anywhere. It's just, having that fear and doing it anyways. It's that courageousness. It's that bravery. And I love that you have hype women as well too, or just hype people in your life. I think we all need that. We need those hype people, those cheerleaders. And again, I think the theme of this is really just remembering that purpose, remembering who we are, standing in our power, because we all have power in some sort of way. And so, in utilizing that, again, is so important. And especially in these independent businesses that didn't even exist before. And I think that's always mesmerizing to me, is that all the creations that we're doing, all the things that we're bringing from dreams to reality, the people that we're affecting. I mean, it's truly building this legacy. And we often don't stand back and see that, but it's happening, right in front of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I'm gonna, I know I've been skipping around questions, but we've touched on this a bit as well too, in terms of the advantages of creating an inclusive business. But I did want to bring it back around to that, and just maybe if you could share a couple more things of what those advantages are of creating that inclusive business.
Okay, so just to kind of round that up, I think the advantages are, one, obviously you're diversifying your client base, which means diversifying revenue, right? I think there's that. There is the creating diversity and inclusion within your organization, which allows you to employ diverse people, which then helps to bring in different clients and different types of people to work with, right? So if you have staff, if you have a business where you can have staff and you're able to diversify it, that's only gonna level up your business. It's only gonna bring different clientele, more clientele, and spread the word about who you are, right? The network there will open up for you. I think other reasons why it's important is that we live in a very diverse world, and we live in a world where multiple people and different communities spend money and want services. And I think that as the world continues to evolve, it will only continue to get much more diverse. And it's important to be part of the change, right? It's important to stay, I think, also to stay valid as a business. And I think in order to do that, you have to move with the times. You have to be able to pivot. Obviously, you have all seen the pivot everyone had to make in 2020. But I think it's important to stay with the times, to stay relevant. And in doing that, I think the best way to do that and stay relevant is to expand your client base and diversify it. By doing that, you have to be inclusive, right? You have to be able to work with different types of people.
Yes. Oh, so good. Okay, before I wrap up with our last question, if you all have any additional questions, please drop them down in the comments. I will definitely shout them out. Lisette, you are phenomenal. I mean, I think that you already know this, and your people know this, but you are truly phenomenal. And I wanted to ask you, what is one key takeaway that you would like to share with our viewers?
I think one key takeaway is that this is, again, a new space for a lot of people. But if you already are thinking about this, if you're already wanting to do this, you've already taken the first step without realizing it, right? And that there are so many resources, free resources out there. I'm out there. If you want to ping me on LinkedIn, I'm always happy. I'm happy to share my email address, happy to answer questions, happy to share resources. I have a bunch of resources that I go to. But I think what I really want people to take away is that this is a journey that will not only improve your business, it will improve you as a human. It will improve the quality of your life. It will improve the way that you live and the way that you do work, right? Opening yourself up to others and bringing others in to be able to use your services, to have access, nothing bad comes from that. It only continues to, like I said, open things up for the rest of the world and connect. And so understand that by doing this, by taking this on, you really are improving your whole life, like your business and your life. And so while it's scary, I think that you've got this, and I am rooting for all of you. And again, I'm here if anyone needs me.
Oh my gosh, where is Oprah when you need her? You need to write a book. You need to do all the things. I just adore you.
Thank you,
One last, of course. One last question from our audience member. I said audience member as if we're on a talk. It feels like a talk show. Amy, she says, "This is my main question or struggle with my small business. Gender neutral language. As a wedding planner and florist, I aim to use spouse and partner, but I've been struggling with reformatting my floral inquiry form. How do I ask if they want a bridal bouquet? Is it as simple as leaving off the bridal preference, or is the word bridal okay? Very niche and specific for my industry, but would love your opinion."
Very specific. I'm wondering if you could do an option where you ask bridal or bouquet. Like, I'm wondering if you can ask in your contact form specifically what type of bouquet you would like, and maybe example bridal or just a regular bouquet. I think you do want to be inclusive to folks that do see themselves as brides, right? Because regardless of gender neutral language, I think that there are nuances where people do want to use the word bride, and I wouldn't want to leave them out. So I'm wondering if there's a way of asking the question that allows for the client to answer specifically what they're looking for.
Yes. That's great. I love that. And definitely we will share Lisette's social media, I'm sure, on our socials and everything. And so just ways to reach out as well too for additional questions, because Lisette, you are truly just, again, phenomenal and just so inviting, and I'm so just grateful that you are not only existing but creating those safe spaces and just making that impact. I can speak about you all day long, but I'm just grateful for you, girl, honestly.
And I am grateful for you, Lauren. And I'm actually very grateful that you guys have created this space, not just to talk about inclusivity, but just to talk about how we can support our small business members.
Yes, I agree. HoneyBook, Rising Tide, Natalie, co-founder here as well too. It's such a dream to be able to see just all of the wonderful people they've been able to gather that have just been so incredible in leading and networking with each other, uplifting each other, truly making the waves of inspiration. And it's a dream to be a part of it. So thank you all for everyone who joined us today. Thank you if you're watching the playback. Don't forget to check out our monthly guide all about inclusivity in business, and also finding your local Rising Tide chapter. And also shout out to Wendy and Claire for helping us as well too. And Lisette, again, thank you so much. You have us speechless. You are doing incredible, important work. And I just hope excuse my language, but you are a badass. And I'm just so in awe of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.